I'm being let off the hook. I'm told I don't need to introduce Manish Gaekwad, who's the author of The Last Courtesan, writing my mother's memoir. And in conversation with him is Deepa George, again, a famous journalist from Goa. It does.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, thank you everyone for coming. We're going to start this session a little differently. We didn't want introductions, but we want you to visualize yourself in a kota. We want you to visualize the sound of gungroos and dim light. And now we'll start.
Please turn off the lights so that they can imagine they are in a fancy place. I mean, so early in the afternoon. I was only joking though.
No, but
You
this
really
is fine.
put us in the
No,
dark.
but, we need some lights here. Thanks. Yeah.
That's where we can put out some ambassador.
Fine.
Just the night was can go. You need a break. Go. I didn't go up to see that.
How sweet.
Yeah, it's nicer. Wait, right out.
I danced in the dark. I used to light up the kota with candles and perform. That ghazal I loved. हमारे बाद अंधेरा रहेगा महफिल में. बहुत चिराग जलाओगे रोशनी के लिए. It became my signature closing song. Those who wanted to be entertained came even when the war was overhead. We did not hear any bullets. We did not see bombs explode. We heard sirens. It sent people scampering in all directions. Those who wanted to dance with death came to the kota. If they were going to die, they wanted to be surrounded by the best things in life: whiskey, women, and music. मरता क्या नहीं करता? What doesn't a dying man do? खूब मुजरा किया, खूब नाची. I danced a lot on those dark nights. Like Waida Rahman in Guide, the words of "आज फिर जीने की तमन्ना है" resonated.
I will take a good cruise and I'm going to cut back. It was happy.
Welcome, Manish.
Thank
you
you.
so much for this wonderful and seriously extraordinary book. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thank you, Deepa. I hope everybody is feeling at home in a kota now.
So this is Manish Gaekwad, the author of The Last Courtesan, an inspiring, extraordinary and moving memoir on the life of Rekha Bai, his mother, who was one of the last wives of courtesans in India. Obviously.
Okay, her spirit is here. Her spirit is here.
She was a courtesan in India from the 60s to early 90s. Part of the Kanjarbad tribe, she was sold at a very young age and trained to be the wife or Nautch girl who went on to become a singing and dancing star in Calcutta and Bombay. This is a moving account of her life lived with great courage, bravery, and above all, honesty, in surviving a brutal world with remarkable dignity. Despite the challenges that fate or Naseeb meted out to her, she chose to raise her only child, her son, by giving him the wings to fly. The Last Courtesan, and this is Manish Gaekwad.
Again. Thank you.
Did your mother really want you to write this memoir, Manish? Because did it marinate in your head for a while, and did you want to do it?
I remember her telling me once that as a child she was herding goats in a village in Pune, and one day she was walking by a school and she peeped in, and the teacher shooed her out. And she was very curious about studying, and so whenever she would go to a shop to buy her favorite pickle or a sweet, she would listen to the songs and learn the words. So from there, I think she developed this curiosity to tell stories, and and when she was sold, she realized that she wanted to tell her story.
So even this book cover, right? I mean, it's just such an interesting cover. What's the story behind this picture, and why did you choose this as the cover?
So this is in Congress House in Grant Road in Bombay, somewhere in the 80s, when we were celebrating my birthday, and a photographer just like him came and took a picture, and that picture stayed in our album for a very long time. And even when I was growing up, I would look at the picture and think, someday I'll use it.
Okay.
So thankfully I got a chance to use it.
There's so much of vulnerability in your writing. It's so difficult for you, because you've lived through it, to be open to sharing this account. Were you in any, obviously you're not afraid of the shame or those kind of negative sentiments or the society at large, because you continue to live and you've got to deal with this every single day, every other lit fest. So
except the fact that I'm terrified of looking at crowds.
So, what was your process in writing this and in dealing with your own emotions?
It was quite easy, Deepa, because I had known the story for such a long time. She wanted to tell it to me. She wanted the world to know the story. She thought, even if she couldn't go to school, her story should be perhaps a lesson for somebody to make their own choices. So when I was about 17, I thought I'll write it, but I was too young myself to know how to write. And then many years passed, and in the pandemic, actually, when we thought the world was going to end, I went back to her and I said, can you tell me the story now, which you've been telling me in bits and parts? And so then that helped us bond also. And it was the easiest, most joyous thing to do.
Because despite the brutality, despite all the, there's a sense of joy in this book. There's a sense of hope. And she's never shown any bitterness through the story. It's always a way of moving forward, taking life as it comes, or taking it by the horns, really. So, when you look at it in that way, did you really value some of those, some of her character or her personality at that time? Or now, in retrospect, do you recognize them as being, were you irritated with her while you were growing up, but now you kind of value it more?
I was a little irritated that she wouldn't let me touch the harmonium or the tabla or the gongru, saying, "Ye gandi cheez hai, this is not for you." And I didn't understand at that time, because she was trying to protect me. She was trying to give me a better life. And so, of course, there was that phase when I was a boy. But and at that time, I was also poring over books. So I also didn't know that I was also shaping a career for myself when I was not being allowed to be part of that music and dance and color and all of that. But subconsciously, or I think it's seeped in. It's the environment that I grew in. So it was there. It was just there in my blood, I think.
Do you agree with me when I say that some of them then were the kind of original feminists of their time? Because while they operated within certain limitations, they still had agency over what they earned their own money. They kind of chose whom they wanted to have a relationship with or to remain single. There was a lot of empowerment despite within that constraint in that sense. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, yes, I agree with you. There were feminist rock stars without even knowing what feminism or being a rock star is. You made your own money, you had your own house, you had your own sisterhood, you had your own agency and choice in choosing who you wanted to be with. And men were guests. They came and they left. So, I mean, growing up in that environment, that's how I also understood the world, that it should only be made and rolled by women.
You know, there's this line in the book. I thought of my single status as an advantage to be able to make my own decisions. That is how I knew to be observant, to not be influenced by the opinions of others, and to study the nature of man. I thought that was so beautiful because she's always been observant and always known her place in that sense.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I think very early she realized that she didn't have those choices and opportunities. So she was very curious about the things that she wasn't allowed to have. And
very instinctual, you would say? I mean, they could read a room immediately, right?
oh yes, of course.
In terms of the people and, yeah.
Some people are just born great, I suppose.
But you know, an important part which I thought was that they really wanted to separate the fact that they were artists, they were tawaifs, not prostitutes. And that is something, that dignity that they wanted to maintain till the end. They fought for it, I believe, as well, in terms of, you know, going up to Indira Gandhi and making a list of names, etc. And so, you know, do you want to read that? Do you want to read an extract? And
I mean, this thing you said about fighting for that sort of place in society, yes, she did kind of campaign by giving her money and not her time, because she had to survive the ordeal at the same time. So she didn't really do much about it, but I think just by living on her own terms, she becomes somebody to identify with.
what is your favorite part from the book that you'd like to read to us?
So this is something even Sohini knows that I read quite often at the Lit Fest. It's a tried and tested formula. It helps me sell the book. So I read page 34. One morning I stepped out, went down the building and was looking for a rickshaw when Pushpa understood I was going to the Howrah railway station. She came down and dragged me back inside, saying I could not leave. Why will you not even let me leave? I shouted. Where will you go? What will you do? She said. You will be torn to pieces by this world in seconds. Do you know who you are? I was aware of my reputation. I had earned it. I was a Baiji. Khangi ho, Randi ho, she shouted. Randi, she screamed and hurled abuses at me. A crowd gathered, attracted by the booming, harsh and loud sound of that one word. I knew what it meant, but in her screaming voice, it came out like a radio announcement. Randi. It sounded horrible. I knew it had the power to stop any man in his tracks and make him stare. It also made everyone stare accusingly at the person who was being shouted at. I was being called a Randi. I was being disgraced. I was being humiliated in broad daylight in front of a crowd. She pulled at my sari. I felt naked being harassed in public. The word was shrill and loud and deafening. Randi. That is how people saw us. I was not a prostitute, but how does any man know better than to judge us as one when one of our own is calling us a whore, a Randi? That was the first time someone had called me a name that I was not. In a public place, in an open street, where strangers were walking by, most of whom stopped to stare at me. Their eyes burnt into me, my skin crawled. The light in the sky was too bright, too harsh. Being dragged back from under the clear blue sky was like being pulled into a pool of darkness, into a pitch dark cave where I belonged, where women like me belonged. It was a worse feeling than leaving, to be forcefully pulled back from escaping with the humiliation that I was no ordinary woman. I was branded a whore. I was stripped of any dignity I might have had as a nobody. This was a sickening realization that I had no place in the world, when I had mustered enough courage to step out into it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
You know, most authors of books on courtesans and that history or that time have always had an external view. You grew up there, though for a very short while, because then you went on to study and you were put into boarding school. But what was it like? Can you tell us what's it like in a kota and growing up there?
In the daytime, it's quite boring. They're just either sleeping or eating or, doing their riyaz, singing and dancing, which is not so colorful. But once the sun sets, all the colors come out, all the makeup comes out, all the dresses come out. They look fabulous. All the flower sellers come, all the snack sellers come, and the patrons start arriving with very fat wallets. So that's very exciting to look forward to. So I grew up thinking this, I was in a film. The world outside the kota was not very filmy. I mean, it was not very nice to the children. So yeah, I mean, it was two worlds, and I think because I went to a boarding school very early, I was able to see in Hindi and translate in English and make sense of my life.
So coming to that, I mean, for a woman who was in that situation, she was so, forward thinking to want to make sure that you got the best education, that you were kept away from that mahal in that sense, so that you were untouched to whatever extent that she could keep you away from this. That I thought was phenomenal, because I'm sure there were other women quite like her with other children as well. I'm not sure if all of them found the importance of education in their kids' lives.
So what happened with the Tawaifs is they did really have too much time to rear their children, because they were so busy making a living. So they would send their children to boarding schools because they earned quite a handsome amount, I would say, and they didn't have to pay taxes. When we went to the boarding schools, all the children went to the boarding school from there, and that was also like a safety vault for us from the antisocial elements that would be around the kota, sort of maybe abusing the children, and or the children getting into wrong company. So it was just to safeguard them. But not all children took to education, because they would have to, once a year they would come back to their mothers in the kota, and not everybody was as studious as I was, I suppose.
So there's this, sorry, I need to adjust this, yeah. So there's this very interesting passage in the book when she hears Manish speak in English. "Mummy, I am fine," you said. I think those were your first words to me. You were such a quiet child that anything you might have said before had not registered with me. You were a late speaker, and now you were speaking, and speaking fluently like an Angrezi bacha. I was not expecting you to speak when your face was bandaged up in the hospital. "Mummy, I'm fine," you repeated. It made my heart weep. You spoke such clean, fluent English. I cried even more. My child was going to have a better future than me. That was all I could think of when you used those English words. "Mummy, I am fine." Do you remember that time?
My face was bandaged because I was eating too much sweets, and I had got some sort of a lump, and I had to be operated for that. But I was very happy because that was the only way to get her to come and see me in the boarding.
How did you get a chance to see this book?
She saw it in bits and parts. It was delayed for a while, but she was aware that it was on its way.
And what would you think her reaction would be to this?
She'd be very happy to be here. She would love to entertain everybody here, more than me, I suppose.
And, because there are so many students in the audience as well, I think it's important for them to know that Manish has worked as a medical transcriptionist, a delivery boy, also in a call center as a fraud specialist, as admin staff at the Oberoi, before the writing bug kind of kicked in. He has freelanced as a journalist with many publications and has also been a scriptwriter.
And I've also made country liquor in a
Yes, Taddi.
in suburban Pune a very long time ago. And the police wouldn't arrest me because they would say, "Ye yahan ka nahi lagta. It doesn't look from here."
So what's your advice to youngsters wanting to get into writing?
Read.
That's it?
That's it. Read. If you can't read, you can't write.
Okay.
I mean, read your phones, of course, but try and read books on those phones as well.
And for someone who's been through, well, it's not for me to judge, but not a normal life in the sense of a typical way, you seem really sorted.
I mean, you have to scratch the surface, no?
So was writing also therapeutic for you in a way? Like writing this book, was that, a way to also...
So, in school, I was a very shy boy. I didn't play games, and nobody would include me because I thought I was growing up to be a courtesan. So, and because nobody wanted to be friends with me, I'd spend all my time in the library. And when you spend your time in the library, you automatically start imagining a better life for yourself.
But writing was not something your mother would have picked for you, right?
Oh, definitely not. She wanted me to be a doctor, but I'd faint at the sight of blood.
Okay, now, are we good on time? I just want to know. Yeah? Okay. Let me check. Go to line.
Thank God she's over with the questions.
So, it's for her, this entire thing of also acknowledging the strangers or kindness, for a person who's been through so much, for her to actually acknowledge the kindness that came to her in her life, I thought was beautiful in the book. There's a line which says, "Strangers leave us with so much to thank for that they forget to remind us of their names." We often underestimate that kindness, and there are various characters in this book, whether it is the Chudiwala, I thought was so beautiful. This gentleman who why don't you explain it?
The thing about kindness of strangers is this room is full of strangers right now, except for a few that I know, and the kindness that they will show to us is by picking up the book after the session. So, I mean, it's all around and one has to just acknowledge it.
No, but you have to explain that Chudiwala scene.
So there was a time when my mother met a Chudiwala at a place where she was performing, and
then he followed her to the train station as she was leaving.
And
then she gave her a set of red bangles with her name engraved on them. And that was just such a beautiful gesture. He didn't expect anything from her. It was just pure love. And the train moves, and she says bye to him, and that was the end of it. But that moment stayed with her. And she, as a young person, didn't even know that was love, or she couldn't define it. But that was just such a cinematic moment that I think this entire book needs to be made into a movie.
I think we should call that the sequel of Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge.
But have any of the web series or any of these guys shown interest in wanting to?
Yes, there is some talk about picking this book up for a film or a series adaptation. But I'll wait till I find the right person for it.
Okay, and should I read the...
Please read it. Sounds lovelier in your voice.
Afterward? This memoir was recorded and written in 2020-21. My mother died on 14th Feb 2023. She suffered a cardiac arrest. She had various health complications and was on dialysis for some time. Her last words to me were, "Montu, main marne wali hu." Son, I am going to die. Even in her final moment, she did not sugarcoat her truth and accepted it like a warrior. I missed my chance to say, "I love you, Mummy." which I had probably never said to her in those exact words, but I do say it now each passing day, aware that she has taught me to be more expressive. She chose a day of love, Valentine's Day, to leave. No one loved me like she did, and I fear I won't be able to love anyone as much as I understand and love her now. What a beautiful, brave, and extraordinary woman. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to have a typical, not a buzzer round, but one of those. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and please make a sort of
You can ask the audience for questions.
answer.
She's doing a rapid fire because she thinks I come from the community of Dharma
We may
Productions.
as well do it, right? If it's films and filmy, we better do this. What would Rekha Bai choose, Helen or Meena Kumari?
A tough one, but I would say Helen.
Which song is a favorite, Ramaya Vastavaya or Aaj Fir Jeene Ki Tamanna Hai?
आज फिर जीने की तमन्ना है.
Gangubai or Pakiza?
Pakiza, because that's one ticket for Meena Kumari then.
Okay, now is a good time for the audience to ask their questions. Anyone with any questions for him? Yeah. What was your life at the boarding?
That's the sequel I'm writing, and it should be out early next year. I mean, but of course, to answer your question, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
Was people aware of sacred blood?
You have to read the book again. No, it's a life in where we're playing a part like it's a film, where we go to the boarding and we make up a story about who we are, and that is the only way to get in. So we imagine that we come from a nice rosy family of a mother, son, and father, and we make it up, and I go along with the story because I'm quite used to living in an imaginary environment.
Oh. You haven't signed up yet to renew the shooting outlets with Bollywood types.
The Bollywood types are coming. Are coming, of course.
Question which is actually an extension of what was asked before. The writing itself is therapeutic, you said. Is publishing that and making the whole public know more therapeutic, or do you feel that's a little bit of a...
You should ask this to the people sitting right in the front. There's some very wonderful authors here, writers. It is not...
You are on the podium.
They're more experienced. I don't know how to answer this. It's not easy, but of course you have to keep trying.
I think it's about saying it out.
It's free therapy for the reader.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
It's free therapy for the ones who read.
Yeah, I should have thought of that, Beena.
And no. Yes, there are many questions for that.
I'm trying to keep it short for the others who are next.
I'm done.
Yes.
Do you feel like being full of stories in a way is also, because now you're older and you're kind of...
Sweet 16, darling.
Oh, really?
Never beyond that.
Okay, this unaging
Yes.
person. How do you feel that the stories are a way of holding on to a way of being? Because you come from a very unconventional experience and living now in what we call the normal world. It's not normal at all, but we all live by some stories. And do you feel like now the way that because you're telling a story about it.
I'm trying to make it as entertaining as possible.
Okay.
That's all. Okay, the silence means they are going to pick up the book.
Yeah, but you know, you must pick up the book because it is full of drama, romance, tragedy.
Action. Should I say that again on the mic?
I mean, let me just say that we are trying to make it sound very serious right now, but if you pick it up, you'll have a good laugh.
And I think it's complete paisa vasool. So please,
Yeah, that's the word.
please pick it up because it's a fantastic book. And
But on Amazon, you might get a discount.
so thank you everyone for coming.
Thank
and
you
thank
so
you,
much.
Manish. We look forward to
Thank
your
you,
next
Deepa.
book.
Thank you.